The unexpected arrival. The Earth had long been a forgotten speck in the vastness of the universe. To the mighty civilizations that ruled the galaxy, humanity was nothing more than a young, primitive species, a curiosity at best, but not worth serious attention. The Zorgans, with their unrivaled technological warfare, and the Phantoms, who wielded powers that transcended physics, had fought for millennia for control of the galaxy, and Earth had no place in their endless war. Humanity, however, had a quiet strength. For centuries, Earth had been consumed with its own internal struggles, wars, politics, and the pursuit of knowledge. Yet, despite the chaos of their own world, humans had managed to reach the stars. They had sent men to the moon, built space stations in orbit, and even launched probes to distant planets, all with nothing more than the faint hope that one day they might be a part of something bigger. But they were far from ready for what lay ahead. In the year 2305, the first contact happened. A skirmish between two alien fleets, the Zorgans and the Phantoms, had accidentally spilled over into Earth's solar system. What began as a mere clash of their immense, advanced warships turned into a cataclysmic event. The Zorgans, with their massive, heavily armed vessels, and the Phantoms, whose ships seemed to phase in and out of existence, were engaged in a battle so intense that the very fabric of space seemed to warp with each strike. The solar system, once a peaceful and serene place, was now filled with chaos. As the alien ships collided, a series of explosions sent debris scattering across space, some of it drifting dangerously close to Earth. The battle had begun to bleed into the very heart of humanity's home, and no one was prepared for it. The humans, in their ignorance, had no idea what was happening. Their most advanced defense systems were still rudimentary compared to the technology of the Zorgans and the Phantoms. As the first signs of alien ships appeared on radar, Earth's defense forces scrambled to respond. The Zorgan ships had already advanced too far, and the Earth's rudimentary space weapons could do little more than create noise in the vacuum of space. As the Zorgans sent out a warning signal, the humans tried their best to intercept, sending a fleet of ships and satellites into orbit, firing warning shots into the path of the approaching ships. To the alien fleets, the efforts were laughable. The Zorgan ships, equipped with shields that could withstand nearly anything, ignored the warnings and continued their pursuit of the Phantoms. They couldn't have cared less about a primitive species that had barely mastered space travel. And the Phantoms, with their mysterious abilities, didn't seem to care much either. They simply danced through space, their ships vanishing and reappearing as if defying the very laws of physics. The battle between the two powerful empires seemed to dwarf humanity's insignificant attempts to intervene. But then, something unexpected happened. As the Zorgan fleet pursued the Phantoms through the asteroid belt, one of their warships, a massive behemoth of steel and weaponry, suddenly veered off course. The ship's systems faltered for a moment, sending it spiraling into the path of a nearby asteroid. It collided with the rock, sending a shockwave across the system, damaging the ship beyond repair. The Zorgan captain, Commander Zylar, was furious. He ordered a full retreat, but the damage was done. In the chaos of the retreat, the Phantoms saw an opening. Their ships surged forward, catching the Zorgan fleet off guard. Within moments, a full-scale battle erupted in Earth's orbit. On the ground, humans were still struggling to understand what was happening. The few news reports that trickled through to the public were full of confusion, with governments worldwide scrambling to make sense of the situation. But one thing was clear: the Earth was under attack, and humanity had no idea how to fight back. As the alien ships circled the Earth, humanity's defenses seemed laughably inadequate. The Zorgan warships, equipped with advanced energy weapons, began targeting the satellites and space stations orbiting Earth, reducing them to smoldering wreckage. The Phantoms, ever elusive, darted around the Zorgans, raining down laser blasts from their invisible ships. The few human space forces that managed to scramble into orbit stood no chance. Their weapons were like toys compared to the might of the Zorgon and Phantom fleets. It was then that something truly extraordinary occurred. One lone human vessel, an old mining ship called the Atlas, piloted by a small crew of civilians and scientists, drifted into the heart of the battle. The ship had no weapons, no shields, and no means of fighting back. Its only advantage was its speed. The crew, led by Captain Jason Carter, was on a routine mission to gather resources from the asteroid belt when they found themselves right in the middle of the chaos. "Captain, we need to get out of here," one of the crew members, Lieutenant Sarah Walker, yelled, panic in her voice. "These ships are going to destroy us." Captain Carter, however, was calm. He had been in dangerous situations before, though never one quite like this. "We can't run, Lieutenant," he said, his voice steady. "We have to make a stand." He wasn't sure what made him say it. There was no way their ship could survive against such overwhelming odds. But there was something inside him, something primal, that pushed him to act. His crew followed his lead, preparing the ship's communication systems for a last-ditch effort. They sent out a broadcast, a simple message, hoping to reach anyone who might be listening. It was a call for help, a plea for humanity to stand up and fight. "This is Captain Jason Carter of the Atlas. We're under attack by alien forces. We need help. Humanity needs help. Please, we can't do this alone." To Carter's surprise, the message wasn't ignored. The Zorgon fleet was too busy with the Phantoms to notice the weak transmission. But the Phantoms, perhaps intrigued by the desperation in Carter's voice, paused for a moment. They were not a species that responded to fear, but there was something about humanity that intrigued them. The Phantom captain, a tall, thin being with glowing blue eyes named Veja, listened to the transmission. Veja's curiosity was piqued. He had never heard anything quite like the desperation in Carter's message. The Phantoms were known for their disinterest in lesser species, but Veja was different. He saw something in the human captain, something worth exploring. "Captain," Veja said to his crew, "there is something strange about this human. Let us see what they do." With that, the Phantom fleet shifted its focus. Instead of continuing their battle with the Zorgons, they turned their attention to the human vessel, the Atlas. The Zorgons, oblivious to this new development, were still locked in their furious pursuit of the Phantoms. But in that one moment, the tide of the battle was about to shift. Humanity, a species long thought beneath notice, had caught the attention of the most powerful forces in the galaxy. The message from the Atlas had been received, and now humanity was about to prove to the galaxy that it would no longer sit idly by as the conflict between the alien empires raged on. The stage was set for the most unexpected and inspiring chapter in galactic history. Humanity, with its resilience and ingenuity, was about to shock the galaxy. The turning point. As the Atlas drifted in the shadows of the alien battle, Captain Jason Carter watched with a mix of disbelief and growing hope. His simple distress call had done something he never expected, captured the attention of the Phantoms. He wasn't sure why they had responded, or even if they had actually heard him. But the feeling in the pit of his stomach told him something had changed. His crew, too, felt the shift. "Captain," Lieutenant Walker called out, breaking the tense silence that had fallen over the bridge. "The Phantom ships, there." She paused, her eyes darting between her instruments. "They're turning. They're coming toward us." Jason turned to her, barely containing his surprise. He had hoped for some kind of miracle, but this was far beyond his wildest expectations. "What does that mean, Lieutenant? Are they coming to attack?" "No, sir," Walker replied, her voice tinged with confusion. "They're not firing. It's almost like they're waiting." The words hung in the air, a peculiar statement when faced with such overwhelming power. A fleet of ships, each capable of warping the very fabric of space, had decided to spare them, at least for the moment. Jason took a deep breath. "Stay calm. Keep monitoring their movements. I'll contact command." He turned to the communication system, knowing full well that any transmission from the Atlas might be intercepted by either the Phantoms or the Zorgons. Even a basic distress signal might provide the alien forces with information that could put Earth's fragile defenses at even greater risk. But this wasn't about Earth's defenses anymore. It was about survival. About proving that humanity mattered in a universe that had largely ignored it. Before Jason could initiate another transmission, a soft ping echoed through the ship's hull. He turned to Lieutenant Walker. "That's coming from the Phantom Fleet. They're trying to make contact." Jason's heart raced as he motioned for Walker to open the line. The bridge fell silent as the screen flickered to life, revealing an alien face unlike anything the crew had ever seen. The being was tall, its skin a luminous, translucent shade of blue, with eyes that glowed like twin orbs of light. It was not humanoid in the traditional sense, its features ethereal, almost spectral. The figure emanated a sense of ancient wisdom and power, but also a strange curiosity. "This is Captain Veja of the Phantom Fleet." The voice resonated, its tone calm yet piercing. "Human, I am intrigued by your message." Jason's mind raced. He had hoped for an answer, but he hadn't prepared for the weight of a direct communication. He cleared his throat, speaking into the console, trying to maintain his composure. "This is Captain Jason Carter of the Atlas. We are a peaceful species, stranded in the middle of your battle. We ask for mercy, not for ourselves, but for our world. We can offer no weapons, no strength, but we are determined to survive. Please, help us." Veja's eyes glowed brighter, flickering with an expression Jason couldn't read. For a long moment, the Phantom Captain simply stared, as if weighing his options. "You speak with the sincerity of one who does not fully understand the consequences of this conflict, human," Veja said. "You are correct in your assessment. Your species has nothing to offer in terms of military strength. And yet, there is something about you." Jason's pulse quickened. What did Veja mean by that? Something about them. The Phantom race had never shown much interest in humanity before. They were known for their cold, detached nature. What had changed? "Why are you helping us?" Jason asked, his voice filled with a mixture of awe and skepticism. Veja's expression remained unreadable. "In the endless void of the universe, human, we have seen many species rise and fall. We have witnessed countless civilizations, all believing they were the chosen ones, the ones who would define the future of this galaxy. Yet it is not power, nor technology, that decides the fate of a species. It is resolve. Your species has proven, through its unwavering survival, that you possess this quality." Jason shook his head, unable to fully grasp what Veja was saying. "We don't have the power to fight these wars. We don't have the means to protect our planet or ourselves from the Zorgans or you. We don't even know why you're here." Veja's gaze softened, if only slightly. "That is where you are mistaken, human. It is not your power or your technology that will save you. It is your ability to adapt, to survive, to find ways where none existed before. You are in a pivotal moment in history. The Zorgans, though mighty, are nothing but a dying empire, clinging to the remnants of their former strength. And the Phantoms, well, we are not as invincible as you believe." Jason leaned forward, trying to understand the full weight of Veja's words. "Are you saying you'll help us? That you'll fight the Zorgans with us?" Veja's eyes glinted with an almost imperceptible smile. "No, Captain Carter. We will not fight for you, but perhaps we will teach you how to fight. There is much you do not know about the universe, and your survival will depend on what you learn. We are prepared to offer you something the Zorgans cannot, an opportunity to stand alongside us, to join us in the coming conflict. But understand this, our help comes at a price. We will teach you, yes, but you must choose your path. The journey ahead will test your species in ways you cannot imagine." Jason's mind spun with possibilities. What was Veja offering? And what price would they demand in return? This was beyond anything he had ever considered. It was a chance to learn from the Phantoms, to harness knowledge and power beyond their wildest dreams. But at what cost? What could they possibly give in exchange for such an opportunity? Before Jason could respond, Veja spoke again, his voice unwavering. I will send you the coordinates of a nearby moon, human. There you will find a ship that has the knowledge you require. But heed this warning. There are others who will seek to prevent you from reaching it. The Zorgans will not sit idle while we help you. And the universe itself is not as kind as you believe." With those final words, the transmission cut off. The bridge fell into stunned silence. "Captain, what just happened?" Lieutenant Walker whispered, her voice barely audible. Jason turned toward her, his mind still processing the magnitude of the offer and the risks involved. "I don't know, Lieutenant, but whatever it is, we need to be ready." The crew of the Atlas stood at a crossroads. They had just been thrust into a conflict far greater than any they could have imagined. Earth's fate, once thought to be in the hands of its own frail defenses, now rested on the unknown path they were about to walk. But they were not alone. In the coming days, they would learn much. And humanity, a species that had once been considered insignificant, would soon begin to rewrite the story of its place in the galaxy. The war was no longer just about survival. It was about evolution. And humanity had just been given the tools to begin its transformation. The choice was theirs, and the stakes were higher than ever. Would they rise to the challenge? Or would they fall like so many civilizations before them? One thing was certain. The universe would never be the same again. Into the unknown. The Atlas was no longer just a ship caught in a war. It had become a symbol of humanity's potential. The crew, once unsure of their place in a universe dominated by forces far beyond their comprehension, now found themselves on the precipice of something far greater than any of them could have imagined. As Captain Jason Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the coordinates sent by Captain Veja, a weight hung over him. The Atlas was heading toward the moon where the ship, the phantom vessel with the knowledge they so desperately needed, awaited them. But the journey ahead was anything but simple. The Zorgans were relentless, and with their power and aggression, they would stop at nothing to prevent humanity from gaining any advantage in this war. "Captain, we're approaching the moon," Lieutenant Walker's voice broke through Jason's thoughts. Jason nodded, standing straighter. "All right, prepare for arrival. Keep a tight watch. The Phantoms said there'd be others who would try to stop us. Let's not give them any chance to strike first." His orders were clear, but the uncertainty that filled the air was palpable. This was humanity's last chance, a chance that might save Earth, but also one that could lead them into a conflict that would stretch the very fabric of existence itself. The Atlas drifted closer to the barren moon, its surface jagged and harsh. The landscape looked as if it had been untouched by time, its craters deep, and the ground cracked with fissures. It was as though the moon itself held secrets, secrets that were waiting to be uncovered. And somewhere, buried beneath its surface, was the ship that held the key to humanity's future. "We're coming up on the coordinates," Captain Walker reported, her voice tense. "But something doesn't feel right." Jason frowned, his gaze flicking to the display screens. There was no sign of the phantom ship yet, just the moon's desolate surface. "Scan the area. Look for any anomalies." Minutes passed, the tension mounting as the ship's systems hummed with activity. Jason stood still, barely able to breathe, as the crew worked tirelessly to track down the hidden ship. His mind raced with questions. Had Veja truly been trustworthy? Or was this just another trap in the vast and dangerous game being played by the alien races? Finally, Walker's voice broke through the silence again. "Captain, we've found it." Jason's heart skipped a beat. There, half buried beneath the surface, was a ship that had been hidden from all sensors, until now. Its dark hull blended seamlessly with the surrounding environment, almost as if it had been designed to blend in with the moon's harsh landscape. It was sleek and imposing, its contours alien, and yet there was something undeniably familiar about it. Jason's eyes narrowed. "What is that thing?" "Unknown," Walker replied, her brow furrowing. "But it's emitting a low-level energy signature. It's definitely functional." The Atlas carefully lowered toward the moon's surface, its engines pushing against the cold vacuum of space, As the ship neared the ground, the surface trembled slightly, and the Atlas lurched as if it had hit a force field. The crew scrambled, gripping their consoles and bracing for the impact. But just as suddenly as the disturbance had begun, it ceased. The Atlas was now hovering just above the surface, the alien ship looming before them like a dark giant. "Looks like we're not the only ones here," Jason muttered, staring at the mysterious craft. "Get ready for anything, and be prepared to defend yourselves." The air in the command center felt thick, suffocating. Jason's mind raced with the possibilities. He had no idea what kind of force could be inside that ship, or if the Phantoms were still allies, or if this was another test, another twist in the complex game of galactic politics. Lowering the shuttle, Lieutenant Walker announced, "We'll send a team to investigate." Jason nodded, his mind still swirling with unanswered questions. As the shuttle descended, he was filled with a sense of foreboding. The moon's surface was eerily quiet, with no signs of life anywhere. Yet something about the silence felt almost too perfect, as if they were being watched by eyes that could see everything. Moments later, the shuttle's doors opened with a soft hiss, and Jason, Walker, and a small team of soldiers stepped out into the alien world. The air was thick, but breathable, as the team stepped cautiously onto the moon's cracked surface. They kept their weapons close, their senses heightened. The ground beneath their feet was cold, and the starkness of the barren landscape left them feeling vulnerable. "Stay close," Jason ordered, his voice low and steady. "We don't know what we're walking into." As they moved toward the ship, the sheer size of it became more apparent. It was enormous, bigger than anything the Atlas had ever seen, with a smooth, curved exterior that reflected the dim light of the distant stars. The ship's hull seemed to pulse with a strange energy, almost as though it were alive, a living, breathing entity made of a material that didn't seem to belong in this galaxy. "We're not alone," Walker whispered suddenly, her voice filled with unease. Jason's heart rate quickened as he turned to look at her. Her eyes were fixed on something in the distance. Following her gaze, Jason's blood ran cold. Figures were emerging from the shadows of the ship. Tall, dark silhouettes that moved with eerie precision, their forms glowing faintly as they approached. "Phantoms," Walker breathed, her voice barely audible. "But they're not like the ones we saw earlier. These are different." The figures stepped into the light, their features now fully visible. They were unmistakably phantoms, but there was a disturbing air of aggression in their posture. Their eyes glowed fiercely, their forms radiating with a strange energy that was far from the peaceful aura Veja had shown them. These were not the beings they had made contact with earlier. The leader of the group stepped forward, his eyes locking with Jason's. "Human," the Phantom leader spoke, his voice cold and unyielding. "You are not meant to be here. You are trespassing on what belongs to us." Jason's pulse raced. The friendly Phantom forces had said nothing about this, nothing about another faction that might oppose their help. Were these Phantoms enemies? Had they betrayed them? "I don't know who you are, or what you want," Jason said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the fear threatening to bubble up. "But we came for the ship. We need the knowledge to stop the Zorgans. We need your help." The Phantom leader's eyes narrowed. "You speak of knowledge, but you are not ready to wield it. This ship contains secrets you do not understand, power you cannot control. You are nothing but children, playing with forces far beyond your comprehension." Jason's jaw tightened. "We'll take that risk." The Phantom leader's lips twisted into something that might have been a smile. "Very well, human. If you insist on taking what is ours, then we will show you what happens when you awaken powers you cannot control." Without warning, the air around them crackled with energy. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the once still ship began to hum with life, its engines awakening. The doors creaked open, revealing an interior filled with swirling light and strange, intricate machinery. Jason realized with a sickening feeling that this was no mere vessel. This was a weapon designed to reshape the very fabric of reality itself. "We will see if you are worthy," the Phantom leader said ominously, as the ship's doors closed behind them. And just like that, Jason and his crew were plunged into the unknown, no longer just fighting for survival, but for the very future of humanity. The storm within. The air inside the Phantom ship was unlike anything the crew of the Atlas had ever encountered. It pulsed with an unnatural hum, almost as if the very walls of the ship were alive, breathing in sync with the crew's rapid heartbeats. The faint light from the ship's core flickered in patterns that were difficult to interpret, creating shifting shadows that danced across the metallic surfaces. It was clear that this ship, this vessel, held more than just technology. It was something else entirely. Jason stood at the front of the group, his hand hovering over his sidearm, ready for anything. The alien phantoms, who had once been their allies, now stood scattered around them, their eyes cold and unfeeling. They hadn't spoken since Jason's last encounter with their leader, but their presence was more than enough to maintain an air of tension. This was no longer a simple mission. It was an entry into the heart of something far greater and far more dangerous than they could have imagined. "We need to get to the central core," Jason whispered, his voice low but firm. The core, the Phantom leader had said, was where the ship's power resided. But it was also the place where the knowledge they sought, the knowledge to defeat the Zorgans, was hidden. But why did the Phantoms not want them to access it? What was it that they feared so much? Lieutenant Walker moved closer to him, her eyes scanning the shifting shadows. "Sir, this place feels wrong. It's like we're walking into a trap." Jason's eyes flicked over the dim corridors, the sudden, eerie quiet amplifying the unease gnawing at him. "I know, but we don't have much choice. We have to move forward." Without another word, the team pushed forward, following the path that would lead them to the core. The ship was a labyrinth of twisting passages and dark corridors, each turn revealing something new and unsettling. The walls were smooth, sleek, almost metallic in appearance, but there was something organic about them, like veins of some unknown substance pulsing beneath the surface. At times, the corridors seemed to stretch unnaturally long, and other times, they seemed to collapse inward, shrinking and narrowing around them. Jason's mind reeled with the implications of what they were walking through. The ship wasn't just alien, it was alive. The longer they moved, the more he felt as if they were intruders in a living, breathing organism, and the ship was aware of their every step. Suddenly, the air grew thicker. Jason felt it in his chest as the temperature began to drop, and the shadows seemed to deepen. They were getting closer to the core. "We're almost there," Walker said, her voice tinged with fear. "But we're not alone." Jason's instincts kicked into overdrive. "What do you mean?" Her gaze flicked toward the ceiling. Movement, up ahead. Before he could respond, a deafening noise shattered the silence. Like a sonic boom, it reverberated through the ship. The walls trembled, and the crew instinctively raised their weapons, their eyes darting in every direction. "Get ready," Jason shouted, his voice rising over the chaos. In an instant, a barrage of energy blasts shot from the walls, catching them off guard. The energy beams ricocheted off the metallic surfaces, splintering the air with an intense, blinding light. Jason barely ducked as one of the beams flew past him, searing the edge of his uniform. He couldn't see where the attack had come from, but the sensation of being watched was overwhelming. "Take cover," he shouted, pushing forward and urging his crew to move quickly. "We've got to make it to the core." The attack was relentless. Energy blasts tore through the walls, leaving scorch marks that hissed as the ship's organic material began to heal itself. Jason could feel the ship responding to the blasts, shifting and pulsating as if it were alive, actively fighting back against the intrusion. They had crossed some invisible threshold, a point of no return. "We're being attacked by the ship itself," Walker yelled, her voice sharp with panic. "We need to stop it." Jason's mind raced. "We can't stop the ship, but we can get to the core and access its systems. It's our only chance. With adrenaline surging, they pressed on, but the ship seemed to have anticipated their every move. The passageways twisted and warped, making it harder to stay on track. Every corner was met with new obstacles. Jagged spikes of energy shot out from the walls, and sections of the floor collapsed into deep, dark pits. The ship seemed to be rejecting them at every turn. As they ran, Jason's thoughts flickered back to the Phantom Leader's words. "This ship contains secrets you do not understand," the Phantom had said. "Power you cannot control." Were they walking into their doom? Was this ship a weapon, or something far worse, a living entity that had evolved into a creature of destruction? The deeper they ventured, the more Jason felt a pressure building in his chest. It wasn't just the physical danger. It was the sense that the ship itself was alive, that it was watching, waiting for them to slip up. The walls seemed to pulse, the air grew colder, and the hum of the ship grew louder. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of running, they reached a large, circular chamber. The walls here were smooth, devoid of any features. The center of the room held a large, glowing orb, a pulsating core of energy that seemed to resonate with the ship itself. "That's it," Walker said, her voice a mix of awe and fear. "The core." Jason stepped forward, his hand reaching for the orb. But as soon as he did, the ship seemed to come alive. The energy around them flared with a brilliant, terrifying light. The air crackled with power, and the ground beneath their feet shook violently. "Get back," Jason shouted, pulling Walker and the others away as the core flared brighter. A voice echoed through the room, cold, calculating, and laced with malice. "You dare awaken the power of the ancients." The voice was not human. It was alien, distant, and filled with the weight of centuries. "You have no idea what you have unleashed." Jason's heart pounded in his chest. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice steady but filled with an edge of fear. The voice responded with a chilling laugh. "We are the keepers of knowledge. We are the architects of destruction. And now you will know what it means to challenge the will of the cosmos." Suddenly, the core exploded with energy. The blast sent Jason and the others tumbling to the floor, their bodies slammed against the walls. The room twisted, reality itself bending as the energy cascaded outward in waves, altering time and space. Jason fought to stay conscious, to keep his mind from unraveling under the sheer intensity of the power that surged through the ship. Everything went dark. The reckoning. Jason's body trembled as he rose to his feet, his legs weak from the shockwave that had knocked him out moments earlier. The pain in his head was sharp, as if the very energy of the core had seared into his thoughts. His heart raced, and for a brief, terrifying moment, he was unsure if they had been defeated. The room around him remained dimly lit, the once magnificent pulsating orb now flickering in the center like a dying star. The voice that had echoed through the chamber, inhuman, ancient, and filled with power, still reverberated in his mind. "You have awakened the storm within. Now you will face the consequences." The words hung in the air, their meaning heavy and foreboding. Jason's grip tightened around the blaster in his hand, his mind racing for answers. What had they unleashed? And how were they supposed to control it? This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore. It was a battle for the very fate of their universe. Walker was the first to get back to her feet, her movements slow but deliberate. She shook her head, as if trying to clear the fog from her mind. Her eyes met Jason's, filled with fear but also determination. "Are we even sure this is a fight we can win?" she asked quietly, her voice thick with doubt. Jason looked at the team, his gaze scanning the weary faces of his crew. He could see the same fear mirrored in their eyes, but there was also something else, a quiet resolve. They were all in this together, and if they didn't succeed, they would all fall together. That was the harsh truth of space exploration. The stakes were always high. But this was something beyond their understanding, beyond any training or preparation they had ever received. "No," Jason said, his voice surprisingly steady. "I don't know if we can win. But I do know this. If we don't try, We'll die here. And whatever this thing is, he gestured to the fading core, it'll only get worse. The others nodded, their faces hardening with determination. The core, though flickering, still pulsed with a strange energy. It was as though it were alive, its very presence commanding their attention. And yet, they weren't in control. The ship's once smooth metallic walls now seemed to writhe, almost as if responding to the core's diminishing energy. "We have to shut it down," Jason said. "There's no other option." He approached the core slowly, every step cautious, as though the very air itself might turn against him. The rest of the crew followed, weapons drawn, ready for anything. But no sooner had they moved forward than the room seemed to shift, the walls contracting and expanding, as though the ship itself were resisting their presence. Then, without warning, the ceiling above them began to crack, and the sound of something heavy scraping against the walls sent a chill down their spines. An ominous rumble echoed through the chamber, and Jason's instincts screamed at him to move, but it was too late. The ship seemed to come alive in an entirely new way, its energy flaring with an intensity that made the air thick with heat. The walls twisted and bent, like they were forming into something or someone. A massive shadow appeared from the center of the room, something dark and looming. Jason's breath caught in his throat. Standing in the middle of the core was a figure, taller than any human, its body composed of shadows and shifting fragments of light. Its face was barely visible, but the eyes, those piercing, glowing eyes, locked onto Jason with a malevolent intensity. The figure spoke, its voice like 1,000 whispers, all speaking in unison. "Foolish mortals, you dare to awaken the storm. You dare challenge the will of the universe." Jason's pulse thundered in his ears. The entity before him wasn't just a being. It was the embodiment of the very power they had been tampering with. The storm was no metaphor. It was real, and it had a form. The realization hit him like a slap to the face. "You're the storm?" Walker asked, her voice trembling but curious. The figure's lips, if they could even be called that, twisted into a sneer. "Not the storm itself. I am the keeper, the guardian of the ancient power you have disturbed. I am the end that comes for those who dare to meddle with forces they do not understand. And you are nothing but a fleeting moment in the grand tapestry of destruction." Jason's mind spun with the implications of the creature's words. The storm wasn't just a force. It was a protector, an entity that had been bound to the core, to the very heart of the phantom ship. And now, they had awakened it. They had triggered the very destruction it was meant to guard. Without thinking, Jason raised his blaster, aiming directly at the dark figure. "We didn't come here to destroy. We came to stop a war that could obliterate everything we'd fought for. You have to help us." The figure's laugh filled the room, loud and discordant, like the grinding of metal against stone. "Help you? You are beyond help. The war you speak of will never end. The universe has already decided. It will burn, and you will watch as it does." Jason's heart sank, but his resolve remained unshaken. He wasn't about to let everything go to waste. Not after everything they had sacrificed. "Then we'll stop you," Jason said, his voice fierce, cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. The creature's eyes flared with an unnatural energy, and the ground beneath them trembled once more. A wave of raw power surged outward from the core, slamming into the crew, sending them flying backward. Jason landed hard against the wall, his breath knocked out of him. The force of the blast left him disoriented, but his mind raced. This creature, this entity, was too powerful to face head-on. They needed to outsmart it, find a way to neutralize the core and stop the storm before it could spread. "Regroup," Jason shouted, struggling to push himself to his feet. "We need to get to the control room." The crew scrambled to their feet, barely able to stand against the storm's energy, their weapons still raised. The figure moved toward them, its movements graceful and fluid, as if it were part of the very ship itself. It wasn't going to let them leave, not until they had paid the price. But Jason had no intention of backing down. He couldn't. Not now. The storm was just beginning, and they had to face it head-on. The fate of the galaxy rested on their next move. The countdown had begun.